How tarnished! You dare challenge me?
Yo, what's going on, fellow Tarnished? My name is Oborrok, and today I'm going to be ranking every single boss that I have fought so far in Elden Ring. Now, before we get into this, I want to preface, I'm not a Soulsborne or Souls-like player. I've just very recently picked up the franchise and the genre, but I am a noob. I am a bot. I am but a baby Tarnished and a baby Souls-like player. And actually, as of right now, I've died 475 times in Elden Ring alone. Now, there are some pretty crazy rankings in this list, so be sure to stay until the end of the video, and then let me know in the comments section how many attempts it took you to beat these bosses. So here we are in my first ever tier list. I'm super excited, and our categories and what we have for our rankings is insane diff, insane difficulty. We have high diff, skill issue. Yes, I will admit some of these were definitely a skill issue. We have medium diff, low diff, intelligence issue. Yes, I was so stubborn and just dying for no reason that I will give some of these an intelligence issue, and then zero diff. So to start us off, we have the grafted scion. This is actually a scripted you died if you do, and you're technically not supposed to fight him at the very beginning of the game. You'll get a cutscene and it'll take you to the tutorial and all that kind of stuff, but you can fight him and actually beat him if you are skilled enough. I was not. I tried to parry him and I got put on a t-shirt immediately. Now, I would honestly go ahead and give this a low diff because the fight itself shouldn't be hard, but I fought him later on in the game as a normal base mob, and I was too scared to actually fight him. But when I tried to fight him, he put me on a t-shirt twice. Literally not even a challenge. I barely scratched him. So I'm gonna go ahead and give the grafted scion a medium difficulty. Next up is the technical first boss that you fight, and that is the Soldier of Godric, who you fight in the tutorial. Honestly, on a difficulty standpoint, I might just have to go ahead and give this guy insane difficulty. No, I'm playing. But it was pretty funny to see everybody in the chat hyping this guy up and being like, just kind of going along with the joke and be like, dude, he's the hardest boss in the game. But on an actual boss fight standpoint, zero diff. All right, and here comes our intelligence category. The Tree Sentinel, you died me 146 times before I officially beat him. And the reason for that is because I was too stubborn to leave the boss fight. Right out the double doors, I was like, there's the Tree Sentinel. I'm finna go fight that man. I literally said like a week before I played Elden Ring that the Tree Sentinel was gonna put me on a t-shirt. I fought him until you died me 66 times before I actually got up to go get water and food. What? I dodged. Okay, that's what's confusing me. That's what I did on the Scion. I'll take my L where my L is due. Yeah, I got me. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah, he got me. Okay. No. See, when he does that attack, I have to remember when he goes all the way up like this. That was a it's so unfortunate. Yeah. I don't know which way I'm supposed to dodge. Yep. There were multiple times that I got him to like 33% HP, still didn't beat him. And don't get me wrong, in those 146 attempts, I did change my strategy a little bit. So realistically, the boss fight itself is not hard. It's more of an actual intelligence check because you're not supposed to fight him immediately. Severe stubbornness that I'm gonna go ahead and give all 146 deaths to the Tree Sentinel an intelligence issue. Next up, we have the Erd Tree Burial Watchdog. This was one of the dungeon bosses that I fought, and actually it packed me up 2 times before I learned its attack pattern and I dealt enough damage, so I'll go ahead and give it a low diff. All right, next up is the Beastman of Farum Azula. This guy got me 1 time, but I would go ahead and give this boss fight a low diff. Next up, we have Margit the Fell Omen, and he ended up packing me up 48 times. Now, he is kind of like the Tree Sentinel. You're not supposed to fight him immediately. Well, I wanted to tough it out, and I wanted to learn his entire moveset, just like I did with the Tree Sentinel, at the cost of me dying 48 times. That's cap. That's actually cap. That's actually cap. What do you mean? I'm cooked. At least I saw it coming, you know what I'm saying? Sit down, Margit! Sit down! 48 attempts! And I got his ass. I could have done that in freaking 2 if I would have just upgraded my damn weapon. But I was like, nah. Let me die to him more intelligently. There you go. I did it! Yes! I'm shaking! I'm actually shaking. I am shaking. Do you see that? I'm not gonna give it an intelligence issue. I would more realistically give it a skill issue, because I did still die to a lot of moves in this fight that I should have seen coming, and I actually should have been able to dodge. But realistically, I would say it's probably a medium diff fight if you're actually biting him the way you're supposed to. Next up is Flying Dragon Agil. At least I think that's how you're supposed to say it. This boss took me out 9 times before I was able to actually win the boss fight. Once I was able to get really close to him and I was able to start actually hitting his legs, then I was able to do a ton of damage. I want to say medium difficulty. I'll say low difficulty, and I'll put him at the top of low difficulty. Our next fight is the Demi-Human Chief. This is the boss dungeon where you have to fight 2 of them. I got packed up 3 times in this boss fight before I got it. And the funny thing was, I actually was too focused on trying to fight both of them at the same time on top of all of the ads that is why I ended up dying all 3 times. The moment I was able to just focus on one boss and then I focused on the other one, the ads really kind of stopped coming after me and I was able to just finish out the boss fight. So I would go ahead and also give this boss fight a low diff, and I would put it ahead of the Erdtree Burial Watchdog. Next up is the Crucible Knight in the Evergaol or Evergaol. When I first fought him, I was not ready at all to fight this boss. Not even in the slightest, okay? I got packed up and put on a freaking t-shirt. I got shipped in a couple hits. I was not supposed to be there that early, and I believe I died to him twice before I was like, okay, clearly I'm not supposed to be here. And I actually did the smart thing and I left the fight. And then I came back hours later when I was super geared up. I had better weapons, all that kind of stuff. But the boss fight itself, even though I was geared up, was still pretty difficult. So I would go ahead and give this, I'd say, a medium difficulty, and I will put it above the Grafted Scion. Next up, we have Bloodhound Knight Darrowil. And the funny thing about this fight is I kind of foreheaded the fight just a little bit and didn't really pay attention to the fact that I was not ready to fight Bloodhound Knight Darrowil. So I think I died to him at least 8 times before I tried to change really any strategy or change armor or anything like that. And then I finally got it, but he still packed me up a total of 17 times before I was able to get him, and I was able to actually get his weapon, which is now my favorite weapon in the game, the Bloodhound Fang. Honestly, mechanically as a boss fight and how fast he moves and the fact that you have to track him and how much he's going to teleport close to you, he's going to back up, you're going to miss your attack, you're going to waste stamina, then you got to try to roll out of there before he hits you again. I would give this boss fight a high difficulty for me personally. Next up is Godric the Grafted, and the funny thing about this boss fight is I was so terrified when he started doing the big slashes, like the big wind slashes. I ended up dying a bunch of times just due to like intimidation, but I was finally able to get him to his phase 2, and the moment I got him to his phase 2, not only was I horrified that he, did what he did. Damn, brother, calm down. That's so nasty. That's what? What is that? But then I literally just rolled off the map. I felt... You cannot be serious. I made it to phase 2 just to fall off the damn map the first time he did it. And I was like, that is the most me thing to do. But mechanically, an actual boss fight, since I tried to just forehead it and not really pay attention to what was going on, but I was decently good at dodging his attacks, I would say that this is probably a high difficulty, but I want to say I'm gonna actually put it into medium difficulty above the Crucible Knight, and he did officially take me out a total of 13 times before I was able to beat him and move on. Our next boss is another Evergowl, and this is Adon, Thief of Fire. Now, this boss quite literally beat the life out of me, and I was not ready to fight this boss at all. Now, I tried again to absolutely forehead this boss without thinking about it, without upgrading, without changing my strategy, and quite literally just got yeeted into next week multiple times before I was finally able to beat this boss. But I had to come back hours later after I was super geared up, and he still beat me into the following week a couple more times. I ended up getting put on a t-shirt 10 times by Adon, Thief of Fire. The boss fight itself, I would realistically give probably a high difficulty, but under Bloodhound Knight Darewell. Next up is the Stone Digger Troll that is in one of the dungeons, and the boss is super easy to defeat. He just has really big attacks that you have to prepare for. He does really big slams and he does swipes and all that kind of stuff. So being able to kind of judge when he's gonna do it and then dodge out of the way, which I did not do very effectively, but I tried. I ended up officially being able to beat this boss in only dying one time. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this boss a low diff, and I'm actually gonna put him a little bit above the Beast of Farmazula. Our next boss is another dungeon boss. This is the Grave Warden Duelist, and this boss intimidated the heck out of me because of how he swings his weapon and the fact that he slams it down and he does swipes and he like runs at you. It was very intimidating more than it was difficult. Once I was actually able to, like, I'm pretty sure I was able to stagger him and I was actually able to get damage in on him, I was like, oh, okay, cool. But the fact that he was running at me, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And that is what resulted in me dying once to this boss, but then I was able to get him up out of there. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually give him more of a medium difficulty, and I'm going to go ahead and put him above the Grafted Scion. Next up is the Black Knife Assassin. Now, I'm going to give this boss 0 difficulty, even under the Soldier of Godric, because this boss only has half HP, and I never died to him. If I did die to this boss, that would be pretty humiliating because he literally has half HP. Up next is the Tibia Mariner, and this dude was more not a difficult boss, but more just trying to find where he was, because he would show up and then he would leave and then he would come back and then he'd teleport super far away, and I just had to keep fighting all kinds of skeletons, and then he would finally show up. I'd try to go get a hit, he'd disappear, and I'm like, bro. So the fight took longer because he just kept leaving, but the actual boss fight itself, I would honestly give a low diff, but I will put it above the Stone Digger Troll. So there's an interesting story about this next boss, and that is the fact that this is actually the Blackblade Kindred that you're not supposed to fight technically immediately. It's guarding the entrance of one of the Colosseums or castles or whatever somewhere, just literally as a statue. If you hit it, of course, then it turns into a boss fight, and I ended up trying to fight it and died immediately, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm clearly not able to fight this thing. And the boss is actually on this list twice because he is another boss later on in the game that packed me up even with me trying to dodge his attacks. So realistically, for the boss fight itself, even though when I first fought him, and again, this is a different version of him. I was not able to beat him, and then I ran away. I'm still going to go ahead and give this boss a medium difficulty, and I'm going to put him above the Crucible Knight. Next up is the Glintstone Dragon Smarog, or Smarog, however you say it. This boss took me out 2 times before I was able to officially take it out. And again, just like Flying Dragon Agheel, you really just hit the legs and then you wait for it to fly away, and then it does its fire attacks and you kind of just, you know, get away from that, and then you go back to hitting its legs. Super easy fight. Realistically, I would go ahead and give this a low difficulty, but I would put it, I think, above the Erdtree Burial Watchdog. Up next, we have the Red Wolf of Radagon. This boss took me out 6 times, and the reason for that is because I was absolutely doo-doo at dodging all of the magic swords, and then really the only time I was actually able to do damage to it is when it did its really big swing where it has the like flaming magic orange sword in its mouth, and then it jumps up into the air and then it slams down in the ground. I dodged through that, and then I was able to get a couple of hits in, and I was really just kind of waiting for it to do that because I knew that is when I could get hits. But basically, even when I tried to dodge the attacks of the magic swords flying at me, I still got hit many times. And that's because when he's about to do it, he like charges up the swords, and then right before they fly at you, he comes at you and hits you again. So if you get hit by him and then the 3 swords, that honestly took me out like 3 times. The fight itself was decently difficult, and then you are needing to kind of monitor quite a bit of things that are going on and make sure you're dodging at the proper times. I would go ahead and give this boss a medium difficulty, and I would actually put it above the Blackblade Kindred. Next up, Sleep Time. What was that voice crack? What the bro? Renala, Queen of the Full Moon. Super easy boss fight. I did have a chandelier or 2 drop on me, not gonna lie. Many books met my face, but the first phase, incredibly easy, especially with Bloodhound Fang. And then the second phase was way harder because not only did she spawn wolves, which were super easy to dodge and get away from. I literally just unlocked from her, and then I just kept running away from the wolves. And then whenever she would do like her freaking photon beam Kamehameha, I tried to get out of that as fast as I could. The hardest part of this fight was actually not her. It was the rematch with freaking Darrowwill. That dude literally got me twice out of the full 4 times I died in this fight. So the boss fight overall was decently easy, especially the first phase. You just watch out for the books, and then you obviously don't have a chandelier fall on you if you're capable of doing that. But the second phase, you have to dodge a lot more, especially when she does her own freaking summons. So I would realistically give this boss fight, I'm gonna put her at the front of medium diff. Next up, Patches the Untethered. This guy immediately goes into 0 diff because after you hit him a couple times, he just completely gives up. Next up, Leonine. At least I think that's how you say it. Misbegotten. Super easy boss fight. Does big drawn up attacks. You dodge out of the way. You hit him. He's down in maybe 4 hits by the time I actually got to him. I'm gonna give him low diff, and I'm actually gonna put him at the lowest of low diff. Next up is the Cemetery Shade, and this is the Cemetery Shade in the dungeon where it spawns skeletons during the boss fight. This boss didn't kill me when I initially fought it in the dungeon, but it did do a move where it basically grabbed onto my head with its like hands or whatever, and it almost took me out with that move, but I was able to get the upper hand and end up winning this fight. But I would say that if you get too close to this thing, especially because it can have blood loss, and I believe in that boss fight specifically it was also able to poison you, I would say that if you're not careful, this boss could definitely pack you up. Way later on in the game, where there is just a random one in that like crazy dungeon that's a puzzle that you have to try and not get run over by the chariot. That specific cemetery, have I been saying cemetery? Cemetery, my bad. Cemetery ended up taking me out probably 4 or 5 times because it's / blood loss / you're dead, and I couldn't dodge through any of it. Realistically, the boss overall entirely, I would probably give medium diff, but I would put him above the Duelist. Next up, Commander O'Neill. I didn't even know that I was in this boss fight until well, honestly, I died, and it was super late at night. I wasn't even paying attention, got packed up immediately, and I was like, cool, not doing that again. Went to go do something else. So I don't know how the boss is realistically, but I'm probably just gonna go ahead and give that a skill issue for now. Nah. I'm gonna swap it off of a skill issue. I'm gonna put it into intelligence issue because, again, I wasn't even paying attention. I literally was autopilot, not even using my brain in this fight. Oh, the time has come. The time has come. The double tree sentinel. Now, once I heard that you have to fight 2 tree sentinels, I was like, bet, bring it on. I actually started to fight them, and I was like, clearly this is not gonna work. I got packed up twice trying to fight both of them at the same time. Then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I can pull the one behind the door and just fight him alone. Then I can go back and I can get the other one. Well, the first time I tried to pull the one and just fight him alone, that dude took me out 14 times, but I was officially able to take him out. Then I went and I rested at the Grace because I defeated the boss. So I thought I only had to fight the other one now. Well, because they're a package deal and you don't actually get Great Enemy Felled until you fight both of them and defeat both of them, he respawned. I just left immediately, came back way later when I was way stronger, and then I fought both of them. I did still pull the one, and I defeated him really, really easily, and then I went and got the other one, defeated. He was on the second one with the torch was actually a lot more difficult, surprisingly. I have fought this boss so much now that I pretty much know its entire attack pattern, left, right, up, and down. I would go ahead and give this boss fight medium difficulty above the Crucible Knight. Next up is Star Scourge Radon. I actually really wish I had the ability to fight the pre-nerf Radon, because I've heard that pre-nerf Radon was 1,000 times harder than the Radon now. But even with that being said, I did still absolutely face tank arrows and a whole bunch of graviton purple orbs and a lot of other stuff that pretty much one-shot me or two-shot me. But I will say that when he did his whole comet move where he turns into a practical freaking meteor and then crashes into the ground, he actually never hit me with that. I was able to dodge that every time. Now, I did use the summons that you're supposed to use in the fight technically to draw his aggro, but he still chased me half of the fight. So I got on Torrent and I just ran around constantly until I was able to get to a point where I jumped off of Torrent and then I hit him with my Bloodhound Fang. And I even tried to use Reduvia at some point, but I did get packed up 8 times in this fight entirely. The fight overall, I would realistically give, if you're not paying attention, I would honestly say he is a high difficulty boss. But I'm gonna put him at the back of high difficulty because I feel like if I was actually paying attention and I wasn't just foreheading the fight, I could have, well, especially if I was way stronger and I didn't rely on the summons, I probably could have fought him just on my own, but I needed to be way more geared for that. This next boss honestly makes me cry. I'm not gonna lie. Draconic Tree Sentinel. His horse spams fireballs. You just can't get away from him. Even if you dodge them at the perfect time, you still get hit. Then he has lightning. If you try to get on Torrent at the start of the fight, that man is going to freaking call down lightning from above and just destroy you and immediately take out Torrent. You are not surviving that. Then also on top of that, he's gonna call in lightning on his second phase like crazy. Again, you almost can't freaking dodge it. I ended up dying to this boss 16 times, and I tried poison, I tried Reduvia, I tried Bloodhound Fang, I tried summons, and I could not get him until I actually summoned my buddy Eli, who was like 30 levels higher than me, and we still almost died, but we were officially able to get him. I am not gonna lie, dude. Realistically, I am gonna give this boss insane difficulty. I know. You're probably looking at this list and you're like, dog, you give him no. Listen. Insane difficult, crazy. Next up, Scaly Misbegotten. Clapped him, dumb easy. Probably 3 hits, 0 diff. Next up is another one of the Cemetery Shades, and this is not the one that got me way later on where he's just a mob. This is actually another dungeon version of him, but this one doesn't spawn the skeletons. I literally took him out in, I think, 2 hits. So I'll put him at the very end of low diff. Next up is Mirinda Blossom. And I actually did end up dying in this dungeon, but not to this boss. No, I ended up dying to the poison buildup. Realistically, 0 diff. Falling Star Beast is our next dungeon boss. This guy actually packed me up twice before I kind of learned what he was going to do. Then as I got him to probably 2 more hits, he got me again. And then I was like, all right, dude, I got this. And then literally he got me like immediately when I first got into the fight. So he took me out 4 times, but then I was finally able to get him when I was able to stay closer to his stomach and just dodge his really big attacks, especially the ones where he spawns all of those like graviton spikes. I would say that because he does pressure you really hard, I would give him medium difficulty, and I would say he is above the Crucible Knight. All right, dude, this next boss, listen, there's not gonna be much in that insane difficulty tier, but dude, Godskin Apostle. So first of all, finding the Godskin Apostle, and this is the one that's at the bottom of the freaking dungeon that's a puzzle in, I believe, Caelid. And when I tell you this boss put me on the most disrespectful t-shirt, when I tell you this boss has a phase 2, and he quite literally, oh my goodness, I was not prepared to fight this boss. I had to leave, upgrade my Reduvia to, I believe, plus 4 or plus 5 before I was ever able to do even slightly enough damage. And then I got lucky that I was finally able to take him out, because he did his move where he spins his staff and he comes at you and he like does his super stretchy move like that. But he missed me and he went past me, and I was able to just keep slashing with Reduvia at the base of his body, and that took him out. But it took me 31 deaths. The Godskin Apostle in the dungeon puzzle gonna go an insane difficulty for me. Up next, we have Demi-Human Queen Gillica, and the boss almost took me out, but I ended up getting through the boss fight without dying. I would say that this boss fight is incredibly low diff. Next up is the Falling Star Beast in the open world. So this guy is in the crater somewhere on the map. I forget exactly. I could not fight this guy. I actually never even beat him. I literally had to run away after he took me out once, and I was like, dude, I'll come back and fight this guy another time, because he's just, nah, man, I'm clearly not doing it. He kept doing the charge attack back and forth. That was taking me out. He was doing the graviton spikes. That was taking me out. He was whipping me with his tail. That was taking me out. Like, literally everything that this dude was doing was getting me to literally 1 hit, and I had to spam heal, hop on torrent. He pulled me off torrent. I had to run away. He freaking like sniped me with rocks. Dude, even though he only took me out once, that man put the panic on me. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually give this guy a high difficulty. Up next, we have Magma Worm Makar. This guy took me out 1 time, but he was super easy to fight. I kind of fought him, honestly, more like not really paying attention and kind of just making a joke of the fight. Not intentionally, because the boss isn't a difficult fight, but I just was hanging out with the community and just chatting and really just honestly making jokes that he like had an upset stomach and he needed Pepto-Bismol and that kind of stuff. So I would say that this boss fight is probably medium difficulty, above the Cemetery Shade. Now our next boss is another Tibia Mariner, but this is the one that spawns ginormous skeletons, and you fight him way later on top of like a mountain somewhere. He didn't take me out, but the boss fight was honestly, again, just kind of time consuming, because he kept teleporting and he kept leaving. It felt like this one left more than the other one. Overall, pretty easy. He himself as a boss, and then all of the mobs that he spawns, not too difficult. I would give a low diff. Now the next one, I actually have a clip of me fighting him and actually getting the win. That is just the Magma Worm, the one that spawns out of the lava lake. A proper duel, good sir. I bid you farewell. And I tip my hat. And this boss is way tankier than Makar, and he's way crazier. Does all kinds of lava attacks, fire attacks. He rushes you. He stomps on you, jumps on you. Like, this dude was actually pretty freaking difficult. I would realistically say that this is between skill issue and high difficulty. There were many times that I could have got the upper hand, and I tapped out skill wise. But then there were other times where I was like trying my absolute hardest, and I was just getting stomped. But I'm going to put him high difficulty, and I'm going to say that he's actually above the Falling Star Beast in the open world. Next up is these freaking nasty dudes, the Kindreds of Rot. You gotta fight both of these freaking goobers, and they're just nasty. This whole creature mob just gross. I don't like it. 0 diff. No, I'll be generous. I'll say low diff, and honestly, because there's 2 of them, he's above the Cemetery Shade. Demi-Human Queen Margot is next, and I did not die to this boss once, but I did get like almost one-tapped. I would say that the boss is probably, if you're not paying attention, it could be an intelligence issue or a skill issue, because it is pretty easy to fight, but of course it can hit you really hard if you're not paying attention. So I would say that it is low diff, but it's above probably all of them at least. I don't want to talk about this boss. Full grown freaking Fallen Star Beast, man. Yeah, dude, that guy hit me literally off the map. Like, he literally charged into me and sent me off of the mountain. Gonna go ahead and give it a skill issue for this one specifically. Dog, this boss, I'll be back for him, okay? And I will fight him and I will win, but I don't want to talk about it. Next up is the Ulcerated Tree Spirit. This boss took me out 2 times, and the boss fight itself is not hard because it does really big drawn up attacks that are pretty easy to kind of gauge when they're gonna happen, but I did still take tons of damage. The overall boss fight is not incredibly hard, so at least for me, I would say maybe medium difficulty above Crucible Knight. We have another Demi-Human Queen, and this is Maggie. I did not die to this boss, but her magic did almost take me out, so I am gonna give this a low diff because I wasn't paying attention. I did almost die, so it almost goes into intelligence issue. Now, remember that dungeon I was telling you about? This is the other dungeon that is a puzzle where you have to worry about the chariot literally running you over constantly. I did not realize that at the bottom of that was a boss. I thought you had to get to the bottom of that in order to get outside, because it's at the top of the mountain, and then right? And that's not the case. You just fight another boss, and it's just another Red Wolf or Radagon. The boss took me out 2 times. Again, the swords got me, but my Bloodhound Fang was massively super strong for this fight, so I was able to take out the boss pretty freaking quickly when I wasn't, pulling magic swords out of my rear. I'm gonna go ahead and give this boss a medium difficulty, and I'm gonna say that he is above the Falling Star Beast in the dungeon. Now we're getting juicy. Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. I died a total of 6 times to this boss, and I'm so serious, man. I tried to gauge his attacks the best that I possibly could, and I was getting wailed on, bro. Like 6 full times that man took me out. I tried so hard to get away from his attacks. I thought I dodged out, like rolled into them, rolled out of them. I tried to do everything that I could in this boss fight, and I sustained so much damage. Probably 80% of the fight was just me healing and trying to run away, even though he's a very, slow boss. He just kind of walks at you menacingly. I want to give it a skill issue because you can do this fight so easily if you're paying attention. I'll say he's high difficulty. He's high difficulty, but for me it was a skill issue realistically. Now listen, when we talk about this next boss, I'm gonna be completely honest. I was like, oh cool, it's just a reshade. It's literally just a reskin of Margit. No. He packed me up a total of 9 times. 3 of those times was the blood blade that he freaking stabs you with, that for some reason is not dodgeable, even if you dodge it freaking perfectly. I'm talking like perfectly. Morgott was an interesting fight, and he does a lot, and he moves decently fast. I want to give a skill issue, but I'm honestly going to say that it is high difficulty, and I'm going to put him above a Dawn Thief of Fire. And next up is these 2 freaking goobers, the Fell Twins. Yeah, they tried to turn off the lights and make the fight scary. Get out of here. 0 diff. I think I got hit once. And for our final boss, so far that I've fought in Elden Ring, is once again another Black Blade Kindred. And this guy actually spawns literally flying down from a staircase, blocking your entrance. You can just run past him and go grab a grace, but he did defeat me 3 times and pretty effortlessly. I need to level up a lot more before trying to go back and actually fight him again. He's probably a skill issue, honestly. I'm gonna be completely honest. But as a brand new Elden Ring player and brand new for the most part to Souls-like games in general, this was my rankings of all of the bosses that I've fought so far in Elden Ring. What do you think about my rankings? Am I a total bot? Am I a total noob? Well, yes, I am quite actually literally a noob as I'm brand new to the game. Do I have a massive skill issue? Do I have an intelligence issue when it comes to these bosses? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section down below and let me know out of all of these bosses, which ones did you struggle with the most? Thank you so much for watching. I greatly appreciate your time. And if you enjoyed this video, drop a like on it and let me know if you guys would like to see more tier lists in the future. But that's it for me. Have an awesome and blessed day.